Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Metaphys deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because we just got Dimensional Fissure and Macrocosmos back at 3 each, which increases the power level of this deck by a lot. I have all sorts of spicy tech cards in this build for you guys, so without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name scratched in every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Metaphys Ragnarok. This card is a great 3-of in the deck and one of the best cards in the entire deck. Because this card has an awesome effect that if this card is normal or special summon, you can manage the top 3 cards of your deck. And if you do, this card gains 300 attack for each Metaphys card banished by this effect, which is an awesome effect to go on this tuner monster. It also has the ability that when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can special summon any level 5 or higher Metaphys monster from your deck, but banish it during the end phase of the next turn, which is a great effect to be able to use with this card because we have a lot of high level Metaphys monsters in this deck. We then play 2 copies of Metaphys Tyrant Dragon. This card is a really good boss monster, but you only really need 2 copies of this card because it has the ability, if this card is special summoned by the effect of a Metaphys monster, it is unaffected by trap effects. Also, if it attacks a monster, it can make a second attack in a row. And if this card is banished, during the standby phase of the next turn, you can shovel this banished card back into the deck and then special summon a Metaphys monster from your hand, but banish it during the end phase of the next turn, which is a great effect just to be able to get one of your high level Metaphys monsters out of your hand onto the field. I then play 3 copies of Metaphys Neptus. This card is really good at dealing with back row because it has the ability, if this card is special by the effect of a Metaphys monster, you can banish all set spells or traps on the field. And if this card is banished during the standby phase of the next turn, you can shuffle this banished card back in the deck and then add a Metaphys card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of this card, which is a great effect to be able to search any of our Metaphys cards that we need from our deck. I then play 3 copies of Metaphys Daedalus. Metaphys Daedalus is a really good 3-of in the deck and my favorite of all the Metaphys cards. It has the ability, this card is special by the effect of a Metaphys monster. You can banish all face-up special summon monsters on the field. And if this card is banished during the standby phase of the next turn, you can banish this card, or you can shuffle this banished card into the deck and then banish a Metaphys card from your deck, except another copy of this card, which is a great effect to be able to use with any of your Metaphys monsters. I then play 2 copies of Metaphys Decoy Dragon. Decoy Dragon is a really good 2-of because it has an absolutely insane monster effect that when your monster is targeted for an attack, you can target one of your Metaphys monsters that's banished or in your graveyard and banish this card, and if you do, special summon that monster in attack position. And during the standby phase of the next turn after this card was banished, you can special summon this banished card, which is a super good effect because you can use that effect over and over again, but only once per turn. But that's super good about this card. This card also comboed with your copy of Ragnarok, going into a synchro play into your copy of Horus, will get 2 of the 3 effects off of Horus, which is just super good, and why this card is a pendulum monster. We then play 3 copies of Aloof Lupine. Aloof Lupine has a really good effect that when this card is normal summoned, you can banish a monster from your hand and then banish one monster from your deck with the same type as that monster, which is super good because all of our Metaphys monsters are worm monsters, which is super good for this monster's effect. We then play 3 copies of Necroface. Necroface is a really good 3-of in the deck because it works pretty much in any deck that's trying to banish cards, because this card has an awesome normal summon effect. And if this card is normal summoned, you can shuffle all banished cards into the deck. And this card gains 100 attack for each card shuffled into the main deck by this effect. And if this card is banished, each player banishes the top 5 cards of their deck, or their entire deck if less than 5, which is a really insane effect, especially combo with cards like your Gold Sarcophagus. We then play a single copy of Giant Rex. Giant Rex is a really good 1-of in the deck because it has a once per turn effect that if this card is banished, you can special summon this card back to the field, which is a super good effect. We then play a single copy of Nemesis Keystone. Keystone is a really good 1-of the deck because it lets you target one of your banished monsters, except another copy of Keystone. Special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, shuffle that target back into the deck, which is a super good effect just to get you an additional monster on the field. It also has the ability during the end phase, if this card is currently banished and was banished this turn, you can add this card back to your hand, but you can only use each effect this card once per turn. But that's absolutely insane with cards like Dimensional Fissure and your copies of Macrocosmos that you can use this card over and over again. We then play 3 copies of Dimensional Shifter. Shifter is just super good in this deck because we're all about banishing in this particular deck, and this card is one of the most powerful hand traps in the entire game right now. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Gold Sarcophagus. This card is basically Rhoda for the deck, so this card is a definite one of in this particular build. You can banish any card from your deck face up, which is just absolutely insane with your Metaphys cards. We then play a single copy of Metaphys Factor. This card is really good because we have so many high level monsters, because it has the ability each turn, one level 5 or higher Metaphys monster can be normal summoned without tributing, which is a great effect, but banish it during the end phase of the next turn. And your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to your Metaphys monster's effects activation, which is really good. We then play 3 copies of Ace of Metaphys. Ace of Metaphys is a really good 3 of. I did consider cutting this card down to 2, but I really like this card as a 3 of in the build, because once per turn you can manage a Metaphys card from your hand, and if you do, draw a card. And then once per turn, if your Metaphys card in its owner's possession is banished, apply the effect depending on whose turn it is. If it's your turn, all monsters on the field lose 500 attack and defense except Metaphys monsters, but if it's your opponent's turn, you change the battle position of all monsters on the field except Metaphys monsters, which is a really insane effect. We then play 3 copies of Dimensional Fissure. This card is just insane in the deck because any monster sent to the graveyard is banished instead, which is just absolutely insane that this card is back at 3. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Metaphys Dimension. Metaphys Dimension is a really good 2 in the deck that has the ability that if your opponent special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can target one of your banished Metaphys monsters and special summon it, but banish it during the end phase of the next turn. And if your other Metaphys card in its owner's possession is banished while this card is already face up in your spell and trap card zone, you can target one card that your opponent controls and banish it, which is a super powerful effect. We then play 3 copies of Metaphys Ascension. This card is a really insane 3 of that lets you discard a Metaphys card to be able to draw a card. Then you can banish one Metaphys monster from your deck, basically being a foolish burial, but also letting you draw a card, which is super insane. It also has the ability, if this card is banished, then you can add a Metaphys card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of this card, but you can only use one effect of this card per turn, and only once that turn. But this card is a definite 3 of in the deck. We then play 3 copies of Macrocosmos. Macrocosmos is just come back to 3, and this card is just absolutely crazy in the deck because it has the ability, while this card is on the field, any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead, which is just absolutely insane. This card is a definite 3 of in the deck. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing a single copy of Metaphys Horus. This card is really good depending on the types of monsters you put in this card to be able to synchro summon it out. If you use a normal monster to synchro summon this card, this face-up card is unaffected by other card effects, but the 2 effects that we're usually going to get off this card is the effect monster and the pendulum monster, which the effect monster effect is that you get to target one other face-up card on the field and negate that target's effects. And if you use a pendulum monster, your opponent chooses one monster that they control and they give control of it to you, but it can't attack this turn, which is a super powerful effect that this card is basically a walking change of heart. We then play a single copy of Final Sigma. Final Sigma is really good if you put it in the extra monster zone because it's unaffected by the effects of cards except Math Mech cards, which is just super good to be able to use in this deck. We then play a single copy of Psychic End Punisher. End Punisher is just absolutely insane. It can get massive and it also has some really insane effects, so this card is a definite 1 of in the deck. We then play a single copy of the Sword Soul Supreme Sovereign. This card just works with any banished deck and has a really insane effect that for each banished card, this card gains 100 attack and defense, and any monster that your opponent controls loses 100 attack and defense. And if this card would be destroyed by card effect, then you can banish a card from your graveyard instead, which works really well with your Metaphys cards. And if a card is banished except during the damage step, then you can banish 1 card each from both your opponent's field and graveyard, which is a super good effect. We then play a single copy of Baron de Fleur. Baron de Fleur is a really good 1 of in the deck that just does a really good walking negate, and it can pop a card once per turn, which is super good. We then play a single copy of Draco Berserker. Draco Berserker is a great one of the deck because this card is a great level 8 synchro monster. I did consider putting Scarlight over this card, but this card is still fantastic as a one of, because when your opponent's monster activates an effect, quick effect, you can banish it, which is just really good. We then play a single copy of Angel of Zephyra. This card is just super good in the deck because it has the ability, this card gains 100 attack for each of your opponent's banished cards. And during the standby phase of the next turn after this card was banished, you can special summon this banished card, which is a really good effect because your opponent can really never get rid of this card unless they get it in the graveyard. So this card is a definite one of in the extra deck. Angel of Zephyra is just super good. We then play a single copy of number 97. Number 97 is really good because you can either make a number 100 or number 38 using this card's effect, which is really insane. We then play a single copy of number 100 to summon off your copy of number 97. This card is super good because usually it comes out at 9,000 attack points, which is just absolutely insane, and it's just a really good card. We then play a single copy of number 38, which comes out as a spell negate, which is really insane. So this card is a definite one of in the deck. We then play a single copy of Access Code Talker to be able to pop cards. This card is a great one of in the deck, but the card I'm actually usually summoning as my link 4 is going to be Topologic Zeroboros. Zeroboros is really good because you cannot summon or set monsters to an extra monster zone that this card points to, and it gains 200 attack for each banished card, so this card can get absolutely massive. And if another monster is special summoned to a zone a link monster points to, while this monster is on the field, you banish all cards on the field, and once per turn during the standby phase of the next turn, after this card was banished by its own effect, you special summon this banished card, which is really good. This card can be a board wipe, which is insane. We then play a single copy of Unicorn to spin stuff, Phoenix to pop spells and traps, and finally IP Masquerade to be able to make your copy of Unicorn during the opponent's turn to spin a card. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played Metaphys before, you definitely should give the deck a try because it's super fun to be able to play, especially now that we have Macro and D-Fisher back at 3 each. And even cards like Dimensional Shifter are absolutely crazy with this deck. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can come part of our notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.